Oh, we got a doozy today, boys. Right now, mainstream keyboard culture is starting to expand beyond what you can find on a Best Buy shelf, and I love to watch the responses from the big manufacturers. Today, I've got the latest 60% keyboard in-house from Vortex. This is the Pok3r V2. I really like this board and what it brings to the space. We're gonna dive in and break it all down. You ready? Let's go. Yo, I'm Brian P. You're watching BadSeed Tech, and today we're checking out the ultra slim, low profile 60% Pok3r V2 from Vortex. For transparency, Vortex did send this unit out for review, but as you should know by now, doesn't affect my review in any way. So the Pok3r V2 just hits different. Priced at $99.99 US, it's a 60%, but it's a totally different vibe from what we've been seeing, and it's a really bold step forward from the Pok3r RGB that I reviewed previously. If that board felt a little dated versus the contenders at the top of 2019, this board feels very far ahead. Inside the box, there's not much here. You get a dust cover, the board itself, and a thick rubberized USB-C cable. That's it. The base of the board is CNC milled aluminum, floating switch design here. The case itself is only 7 millimeters tall. From the bottom of the case to the top of the caps, we have 19.7 millimeters. We have 6 small rubber feet on the bottom and a USB-C connection. No flip down feet, no keycap pullers, nada. Slim bezel isn't even the phrase. The case bezel here, it's like 1.5 millimeters all the way around, and there's no plate. We're sitting right on the PCB here. So being a low profile, switches here are limited to one selection only, and that's the Cherry MX Red low profile. We saw these in some recent releases from Cooler Master. The keycaps are obviously different than what we're seeing right now on most production boards. Double shot PBT, and it's a VSA profile. That's a Vortex exclusive. Feels like a cross between XDA and DSA, low profile in a really large surface area. One unique thing here versus a lot of the production boards is that the keys on the top row are the exact height as on the bottom row, so this thing's totally flat front to back. The real winner here is the large area where your fingers hit the keys. That makes typing on this board really enjoyable. Stabilizers are a little different than most. These appear to be Cherry Low Pro stabs, difference being they're not going to strike the plate or the PCB, but instead will bottom out in this little bucket that extends down past the PCB. They do feel really stable, but there is some noticeable rattle here. Hopefully this is something I can bang out with some lube. Grow up. These are double shot PBT caps, but they aren't backlit or shine through. Base keys here are like a bone color, like a light beige with centered black legends. Modifiers are charcoal with orange legends, all text, very clean look here. I wish we'd have seen a couple color flipped accent keys like what we saw at Computex when they previewed this board. Vortex has confirmed, unfortunately, that those colored accent keys will not be present in the final retail version. So the colorway here clearly draws a lot of inspiration from Tom Barry's Carbon set. I decided to hunt down the designer of that set, and Tom Barry stated that he had no involvement with the development of this board and did not wish for his design to be used despite Vortex offering compensation. Vortex confirms that they are attempting to compensate him, that they're still in negotiations, but that ultimately they will respect his wishes if he doesn't want to move forward with this. So you may be looking at a very rare version of this board. Nonetheless, these are expected to hit online retailers as early as August 15th, so we'll have to wait and see how all this shakes out. I'll be keeping a close eye on this situation too, because I think it's really important to spotlight designers who contributed a lot of support to the keyboard community prior to all the exposure in 2019. The Carbon set, and most other big sets for that matter, gets knocked off quite a bit, and I think this is going to set a really important precedent for how big manufacturers work with smaller designers as we move forward. So at first inspection, with the aesthetic they were going for here, I didn't even think this board was backlit at all, but obviously it totally is, and it's full RGB. It has the same suite of modes we saw in the Pok3r RGB, and they've included a basic rainbow wave this time around. Despite not having a backplate of any kind, the RGB still looks very good. Full white does have a bit of a pink tint. Per key RGB is easy enough here, and you can also have a different RGB setup for each layer in the event you have game-specific stuff set up. There will be some learning curve associated with this board. As you may have noticed, there are no side legends printed on the keys for the alternate functions. With a board like this, I'll forgive it because I'd rather have the clean look and work for it than have these keys cluttered with side legends. So in true Vortex form, you will have the FN key and the PN key. FN will handle most secondary functions. There is no software here, so you'll need to get to know this board pretty well in order to get the most out of it. Arrow keys are going to be handled by function IJKL like you'll find on a lot of 60s. There is no hardware dip switch to relocate the function key, but this can be done in software provided you're not on the default layer. Most Vortex boards work by having the default layer where you can't change anything, and then having 3 additional layers on top of that where you can virtually rebind anything you want to. The P key is what you'll use to switch between these various layers and to handle system stuff. One minor drawback of the layer system from a look standpoint is that there are indicator LEDs under the spacebar to let you know at a glance which layer you have selected. These won't change depending on your lighting assignment, so for example, you can have rainbow vortex mode on in layer 1, and you'll still have that red LED lit to let you know you're on layer 1. Small price to pay for that functionality and that slim bezel, but it's something to be aware of. Now, one thing you may be noticing here in the B-roll is that not all the keys sit straight all the time. It's really obvious when it's backlit, and especially with the squared off profile of the VSA caps. But I saw this on the Cooler Master board as well, and as it turns out, despite these being really high quality keycaps, this is a problem that actually exists with the cherry switch itself. These will have a small degree of rotation to them, so if you happen to have OCD-like tendencies, this is something you'll want to be aware of. I was a little worried that the totally flat, low profile would make it awkward or uncomfortable for gaming, but I didn't find that to be the case at all. It felt really natural in-game, assuming you don't mind linear switches. So versus the other major 60s out there, it's really difficult to compare because this board has like a completely different vibe. Obviously with the selection for the low pro switches, this isn't going to be a hot swap board. You can use certain OEM keycaps and tie-how rubberized as well if you'd like something that feels a little more familiar, but the question for me, I guess, is why would you choose this board to do that? If that's the kind of board you're looking for, there's already plenty of options out there for that, which is why I think this was the right move for Vortex. If you like the look and features of this board, this is the only place to get it, so it kind of sidesteps those inevitable like this or Ducky 1-2 Mini and Pro 2 GMMK Compact comparison questions. Vortex pushed in a different direction here. Instead of going back to the table and polishing up the Pok3r RGB and then being the last guest to that party, I think this is a really smart play for them. So wrapping up here, as I said, I would have really liked to see at least a couple accent keys in here just to change up the look a little bit, maybe a keycap puller. Vortex's layer system requires a pretty challenging learning curve, and I do wish Cherry could address the stem rotation on these low pro switches. But overall, I really like the design and functionality of this board. Vortex responded in a big way, addressed the opportunities of the Pok3r RGB, added USB-C, PBT caps, really attempted to bring something fresh to the market, and outside of the use of the carbon colorway, I think they've achieved that. I do hope they decide to release different keycap sets for it in this profile. I really like it. If all goes well, expect this to be available mid-August. I will put a link from mechanicalkeyboards.com and candykeys.com down in the description. It's not even showing up for pre-order yet on either site, but watch those links and my social feeds, and I'll keep you guys updated as we get closer to release. As always, any questions, hit me in the comments or drop by the Discord, unless of course your question is this or Ducky 1-2 Mini, in which case don't do either of those things. And that's it for this time. I'm Brian P. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, stay up.